Sounds good.
All right, everybody. A quick shout out to DeFizz. He was first. He was here as soon as this was up in chat. As you can see, we have a special guest with us tonight, so we're not going to waste too much time, talking ourselves. But Bebeomega, welcome to the stream, and then welcome this special guest that you set up for us.
First, hello guys, hello everybody to the audience. We're having a special stream today, as you see, a little bit earlier than usual, but that's because we have a special guest, the new CEO of Splinterlands, Mr. Rosen. So welcome to the show. Yeah, but you can say something to people, maybe.
No, hey everyone. Thanks for having me on the show. I really like doing things like this, and I haven't had the opportunity in a while. And I appreciate you making the time earlier for me here on the East Coast. So yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. We had the town square earlier today, but hopefully some people who weren't able to make that will be able to catch this, and we get to talk to you guys and find out what the community wants to hear about.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch the town square today, but only on YouTube, so I might have missed a little bit of piece of it that cut out. You had some interesting updates to start with. Did you want to go over any of that really quickly, since that is kind of the news of the day, and our show usually does talk more about what's going on right now?
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember exactly everything I talked about, so if there's something I miss, jump in and let me know. Yeah, the big news obviously is the Rebellion presale is starting in less than 2 days now. I don't know exactly how many hours, but say roughly 40 or so hours from now. It'll be Wednesday afternoon, Eastern U.S. time. And as you know, the proposal just passed for the DAO to receive 50% of the revenue from the Rebellion sale. So I'm super excited for that. And we've seen that reflected, I think, in the DEC price, that everyone's trying to get their DEC ready to purchase the packs, which is great. That's exactly what we're going for, product backed token. So we have a new product that people are excited about, and we see that reflected in the value of the token. I mentioned a bunch of people asked about if there's going to be, if we are limiting it to 500,000 packs, or it's going to be time-based limit. We are sticking to the 500,000 pack limit. So if that sells out, they will be gone in the pre-sale. I don't expect that there will be a super quick sellout of those. That is a lot of packs considering the market conditions. But if you do want yours, make sure to get your tokens ready to get those when the sale goes live. And also a note that other people have asked is your vouchers will need to be held in your in-game wallet versus the SPS chain wallet. So you earn vouchers in your SPS chain wallet, which will be how like the SPS validators work. And then within the website, you can just transfer them over to your in-game wallet, and they'll be ready to go for the sale on Wednesday. I also talked about my expectations for like DEC and the whole like flywheel that we've talked about with burning SPS. So obviously the recent price action is great, but I still expect there to be a big kind of hurdle that we have to climb. So it's gonna take more time, in my opinion, before we get to a point where people are still, there's still demand for DEC, significant demand when it gets over the $1 per 1,000 kind of par value we go at. So I think people have been used to it being well below that for so long that it's going to take a while before people still buy it at higher than that value. I think we're going to need land to be out, and just have a lot of other reasons for people to need DEC. And then we also have seen people burning tons and tons of cards. I think there's let me see, I have some numbers. There's been over a million BCX worth of cards burned in like the last couple days just to get DEC, because I guess it's been cheaper or easier for people than purchasing DEC on the market at these prices. So that's great, because we have go ahead.
You can see that right here in the DEC supply chart here on Splinter Cards. We were heading straight down. Rebellion's coming out, and we shot up for the first time in a long time, and that's due to that card burning that you've talked about. And so anybody that is wondered, this ecosystem is so interconnected, and it's one of the reasons why I've always thought what you've set up here is pretty ingenious, because it only takes a few things to start going, and there's kind of a domino setup where like every part of this ecosystem helps each other, which is an exciting thing that I think a lot of people overlook. So it's very interesting to see stuff like this start to work out as we get near peg. We see cards start to get burned. You see SPS going up. Well, how is that happening? Well, maybe people are buying it and burning it. I mean, there's so many interesting things going on right now.
Or there's also people who are, expecting the burning to start happening, so you want to buy before that, right? Buy the rumor type thing, right? You want to get in before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good actually. I mean, I know a lot of people like to see the DEC circulation going down and down and down, but ultimately, once this all kicks off, what we're going to see is actually that the DEC supply is going to increase and is going to increase significantly. As people, well, now they're burning cards, and eventually, hopefully, we'll run through the excess of cards in the system between burning and between land. And then when people start burning SPS, it's going to be minting DEC. So it's sort of similar to like other stable coins in that, when there's more demand for Tether or USDC, like it prints more of it. And that's how the market cap of those coins increase. Since their price doesn't increase, you have to have more in circulation for the market cap to increase. So ultimately, once this all starts playing out, we'll hopefully start to see the market cap of DEC increasing, and that will be due to the fact that there's more and more being minted because other assets in the ecosystem are being burned. So that eventually we're gonna want to see the DEC circulation start increasing significantly as more value is coming into the ecosystem.
I want to ask a little bit like more personal question, like how are you doing, man? Like how are you coping with the new position? Like, do you really hate it as much as it kind of feels? Like, are you going to be okay, not giving up, and how is it going for you?
It's been going very well, I would say. I was very hesitant about the whole thing. I don't like dealing with corporate crap. Just all the stuff you need to do to run a business. I really liked the previous situation where kind of Aggroed or other people were handling all of that, just like dealing with investors, raising money, dealing with HR issues, taxes, all that nonsense. Like I just want to build the game. I want to design features. I want to focus on all that. But that being said, I knew what I was getting into going into this. I think the reception I've received from the community has been overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten so many great messages and people reaching out to me. So that's made it really much better. Like I feel like I'm really helping. I'm doing good things, and it just makes it more exciting for me. And like I know, even though I don't like some of these things, that they're important. And by doing them and kind of getting them out of the way, I can get us in a better position where I can get back to all the product design stuff in the future. So so far so good. Obviously things have so far been going pretty well, and that makes it easier. If things end up going poorly, that's going to add more stress. But so far I'm pretty optimistic about the Rebellion sale generally, even if it doesn't sell out. I'm not expecting a sellout like I mentioned earlier, or at least not a fast sellout, and that's fine. It'll still be a big deal for the business. It'll still be a really big deal to have half of the revenue go to the DAO, and then land, I mentioned, is still being worked on, but 1.5 should be out, I'm hoping, within the next month or so. And then we'll start releasing the details of Land 2.0, which is, in my opinion, where it gets really exciting. I'm working on raising capital for the company, which has been going well so far, although, I'm not going to count on it till it's done. Yeah. I don't know. So overall, things are going well. I feel like things are going in the right direction. I have a lot of support from the community and the team. So I'm happy and I'm excited, and I'm motivated to keep pushing through all the stuff I don't particularly like. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're not getting overstressed by it and coming into it. That's exciting. I know there's a lot of support, as you're seeing in the chat. People are hoping you grow into the role. I do know that a Matt sighting in the past had become so rare. It was a special event. We were waiting for those news and for those updates. So it's going to be something I think the community is definitely on board for seeing. And I also think, like, at this point, you're the right person to do this because you've put the vision of what land is going to be. You've built what this whole ecosystem is going to be, from where the tokenomics are going to work. You have all of that in your mind, and we've been waiting for it all to come really into play and into the ecosystem. And we're kind of at what some people, at least in my mind, would say a critical moment before, where you want it all ready so that if there is a big bull run, if we do see Bitcoin go to 100,000, we're not sitting here going, ugh, the system isn't really all there, and so we miss that run up because people go, oh, they're still building here. I'm going to invest my money into things that are done, and so I'm really, really hopeful at this point. I think you took over at the right time to just drive us to, because the full vision I see in Land 2.0 and even 3.0 is so important to the overall token economics of our system.
Yeah, and I think it's even more about the team that we have in place. So, in the past, in the last bull run, I was kind of doing most everything from the product side. I was doing a lot of the software development. I was running the servers. I was doing a lot of customer support. So obviously, like when things grew very quickly, like that just did not work, and we didn't have the team in place. It took us a while to get the team in place to take that off me. And then it was like almost a year, I feel like, just dealing with the growth where there was like no development happening, no anything. 'Cause we were just like running around, like chickens with our head cut off, trying to handle everything, keep the servers running, keep the game running, fix all the problems, get people their tokens that they were missing because those problems. Now we don't have any of that anymore. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like there's been like no downtime or no issues on the site. It's been, there's been no huge problems with everybody losing tokens or whatever. It's just been like a whole world of difference. So to me, when the next bull run hits us, we're not gonna have to drop everything for like a year. It's just we're gonna be ready to handle it, and keep building into that. So that I'm really excited for. I've never been in that position, and it's also helping me now too, right? This is Rebellion's going to be the first set that I really didn't have much of a hand in designing all the cards and the stats on. So the team, specifically Call Me Tim, if you recall him on the team, he's been leading the Rebellion design process with a lot of the rest of the team helping to go through the stats, and they came up with all the new abilities and even the whole summoner tactics thing. One of the things I was worried about was just like how far off the full vision of land was, right? Even if we did land 2.0, which is all the resources and the buildings and everything, it's like, okay, then we have to build an entirely new part of the battle system out, and that just seemed like a daunting task to me. And then it turns out they just kind of, as a side project, went and kind of built it. Basically, they said, let's try out this second battle step that we've been talking about for items and spells. And they built a little working prototype of it, and that's where we were like, well, wait, can we actually like get this out now somehow with Rebellion? And just like having a team that's focused on these things, and having people that work on each part of the system, so it's not like, oh, now we are having these problems and Matt has to work on those, so I can't work on anything else and nothing gets done. It's a totally different world, honestly, from the last bull run. So I'm just super excited for this next one, and no matter where we are when it comes, if it's next month or next year or whenever, like we're just going to be so ready with this whole tokenomic system in place, the team in place, and we're just going to be ready to run with it.
I'm just curious, like with the changes, with the recent downsizing, like how much of your original vision are you still aiming for? Like, is there any scaling down? Is there like things that you gave up on, or is still the full picture on like how you feel about that?
I mean, we definitely, if anything, we didn't give up on anything. We're not doing anything. If anything, like things have gotten more than I initially planned. I mean, a lot of the original like land designs, I was imagining them like much simplified because I knew we didn't have the resources to go and build them. But now that we have such a good team, I feel more free to just go crazy with the design, and they'll sort of pick it up and make it happen. And even with the downsizing, I feel like a lot of it is just forces us to be more efficient, right? And we're not gonna be able to do as many things in parallel. So I still want to do everything, but some things that we were working on in parallel, like the SPS validators and some like redesigns of parts of the site. There was a question about Battles 2.0 in the town square today, like some of that stuff we're still going to do. It's just we can't focus on that yet. So rather than doing more things in parallel, we're gonna do, one or two things at a time. So it might take longer to get everything there, but it's also, sometimes it's hard to do stuff in parallel because you have a bunch of these different groups or developers working on these different things, but then they still have to bring them all together to get them released as part of the same product. And sometimes that, we run into a lot of bottlenecks and bandwidth issues. And so, ultimately, I think we we downsized, and we're going to have to be more careful and deliberate in our priorities. But I think we can also work much more efficiently, and still deliver with land after Rebellion, obviously being the like real top priority of getting that like the full thing out and live.
Yeah, that's a good thing to hear. I do understand the idea of trying to streamline and really just uh, get everything built that you guys have put out there. At which point do you think you might start thinking about what comes next into the ecosystem? Because one of the criticisms of our economics at all is that anytime you have a burn to mint mentality, and we've seen this with some of the projects you base some of our stuff off in the past, they reach a critical mass and then there's too much of whatever you're minting, too much DEC in the system, too much for us to keep everything running. I think the answer is mostly land development, and new staking requirements, new burnings, new things within that is going to need so much more DEC that we have, that it isn't a big issue. But it's one of the biggest pushbacks I get when I talk about our economics with other people, is just that, like, oh, you're just going to end up with so much DEC that it's not worth anything.
Well, right. I mean, that's exactly how it's set up with that in mind, right? So ultimately, what we have are products, and so we need to keep coming out with new products that our community wants to buy. And historically, if you look at similar games, like I equate this to something like Magic the Gathering as like the most simple comparison. I mean, they're going almost 30 years strong now of continually releasing new products that people still want to buy. I think by being a digital and blockchain based game, we have the opportunity to do stuff like far beyond just new card sets with new mechanics, right? We have land, and we have, we're going to have more. So we just got to keep innovating and releasing like cool new game modes and assets and different types of things. And then ultimately the dark energy crystals are backed by that. So that's where the value comes from. We keep releasing new things that people like. We hopefully keep increasing our player base. So more value is coming into the ecosystem, and that's how ideally the DEC market cap can keep going up, just like something like another stable coin. As more people want that stable coin, more value comes into the ecosystem. The market cap keeps going up. And one interesting difference though with DEC is that in order to buy the products with DEC, like with stable coins, you're transferring it to one person to another. So I buy something from you or a company, I transfer the stable coins to you, and then they have the stable coins and they use it to pay for something. But we actually, in a lot of cases, the DEC will just be burned. so it goes away. So we put the products out, the DEC, the value comes in, the DEC is burned, or in some cases goes to the DAO, where ideally it just kind of sits there and never needs to be used. Maybe the DAO even chooses to burn it. So that's another way where we can keep, as the DEC market cap goes up, when people buy it, then or burn SPS or something to get it, then they spend it and it actually goes down. So ultimately the idea is that all the value ultimately goes to the SPS token. So the idea is we continually create more products that people like, so that gets money coming into the ecosystem, and all the money is ultimately funneled into the SPS token, is in a nutshell how the whole thing's designed to work.
Yeah, I want to ask you something that a piece of salt that keeps circulating ever since you announced the Rebellion pre-sale. There was a major concerns, and I know the answer for myself, but I think it's better if you answer how you see it. A lot of people were asking, how come now in a couple of months' time there'll be a whole new set introduced with the whole new mechanics and whole new abilities and 90 plus cards, and land was not like was right around the corner, and it never came. I mean, until now. So it's like there, if land is such a complicated task, because for a lot of people it seems like it's very easy to program, then would you be able to get the whole set in time for the sale? And as I said, I know the answer, but I think it's good if you also present your point.
Yeah, I mean, so the real thing is, with land, there was kind of a panic at some point when, we had announced that land was going to be out in August, right? And then went into September, and it was this type of thing where really, there was just no way it was actually going to be done by then. And then sort of as a bit of a panic, it was okay, take every developer and say, go work on land, right? But things don't really work that way. You can't just throw a bunch of new developers onto a project and then have it automatically be done faster. And there was a lot of internal clashing between the developers. We had the people, the land team that were working on land really hard, and they were doing nights and weekends. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of new people were thrown into the mix that weren't familiar with the code, that were trying to do things. Everyone was stepping on each other's toes, and it kind of made things worse, in my opinion. So one of the things I had to do, when I stepped in, was kind of undo that a bit and say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's let the land team, led by Farpatrod, just focus on finishing it up. It's like too late in the game at this point to just start throwing new people into it. And so, that's kind of where we are now, and they're doing a good job of just finishing it up, and then going forward, we're going to kind of work out a better way, like for land 2.0 or even 1.6, to start bringing more people in. But and it's one of the things was also like we were pushing the developers too much. So not only were like new people being thrown in, but we were saying, and you guys need to get everything done next week, and you need to get it out, and you need to get it on Mav server. So like it was just too much stress. There was emotions kind of running wild. There was even someone who submitted a resignation to leave the company, until we kind of sat down and calmed them down and told them, we're gonna dial back on this. So it's sort of a situation where I had to like defuse that situation a little bit. But at the same time, Rebellion was already in process, right? So we already had, like I said, Call Me Tim was kind of leading that. A lot of that was happening. So I had to kind of decide. We could have just sort of waited on Rebellion until land was out, but I wasn't really sure how long land was going to take now that we kind of dialed that back. And Rebellion was like really moving forward very well and looking ready to go. So I thought it would be much better to say, you know what, we're gonna put this out. I think it's an exciting, really great thing for the community. So far, that seems to be the case. And the land team, which is separate developers than who are working on Rebellion, can just keep plugging away and getting that stuff finished up. So it was, there's not always a perfect scenario, right? I mean, in the perfect world, land would have just been out in August. But I had to deal with the situation as I saw it. And sometimes it makes sense to take a step back with things and just let everyone. I told everyone, when I took over on our all hands meeting, I was just like, everyone just needs to take a break for a little bit, chill out, take some time off, take a breather, like, get back. We need to get our heads back in the game from like a super stressful, last month or two with a lot of anger. And I think that'll be. I know the community's chomping at the bit to get land. I am also. So I get that feeling, but like I need to set things up for the long term. Make sure like our people are taken care of and are well rested and energized and excited about what they're doing, not angry and ready to quit. So that's kind of how I landed at our current roadmap for the end of the year.
And December 5 is a goal for sure, right? For Rebellion.
Yeah, I don't see any worry about getting that, hitting that date. We're really pretty far along with a lot of this stuff. So, I wouldn't have put it out in that post if I wasn't very, very confident we would hit that.
That's what.
Yeah, I just as a small comment, I'd have to admit, like when I first heard that Rebellion was going to be coming out, I had mixed feelings until you introduced the fact that a new game mechanic was coming out inside of the set. Then that changed everything in my mind because I'm like, oh, this isn't just a new set of cards. It's an upgrade to the game. And I think that's where the most excitement is coming from. And I was part of a pre-sale group that in Chaos Legion got into the top 6. We ended up selling that right to design the card. And then I did my own pre-sale group for Rift Watchers, and it wasn't huge, 10,000 packs. It's a decent amount. And as I'm trying to organize one for Rebellion, I'm having an interesting fact. Yes, there are some people that are gone, but the people who are still here keep telling me, I'm going to buy on my own because I want a title. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of an interesting dynamic. Sure, there's not as many guys around who are buying maybe 200 packs, but all of a sudden there's a bunch of guys who are buying 1,000 packs or 1,500 packs because they think that's going to get them one of those titles in this pre-sale. And so, as someone who was like a little gun shy from pre-sales, because I have to admit my involvement in Chaos Legion was, a 5,000 pack buy. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if I could do this again because that didn't work out so well so far. But at the same time, I'm sitting here, going like, well, how many of these can I get? And do I even go into a group? Because I also would be interested in seeing how this is all going to go. So I agree with you. I don't know if the demand is there to sell it out. But at the same time, there's definitely it's an interesting thing on this back end, messaging with people and talking with people. Because a lot of the people, if they're in, they seem to be really in.
Yeah, and I mean, there's kind of two sides of the coin. I mentioned this on one of the town halls. Like people are worried, like, oh, if the pre-sale doesn't sell out or doesn't do well, is the company screwed? Or like, people are giving me all these ideas to try to sell more packs. And my response is, I don't want to try to sell more packs, right? I think that was one of the mistakes we made with Chaos Legion, is we kept like incentivizing people to buy and buy and buy way more packs than they actually need. The actual incentive to buy the packs should be to get the cards to play the game, right? That's really the main incentive. And I know we're adding, we have some pre-sale incentives and they're good, and that's, we kind of have to do that for a pre-sale. But I wanted to keep them, reasonable. And a lot of people were like, oh, we should have a lower price in the pre-sale and all these things. And I opted not to do that for the same reason. It's just like, I would actually be okay if the sale overall was relatively underwhelming, because I think we need that. It's sort of like that's an under promise and over deliver scenario. With Chaos Legion, we kind of over promised and under delivered. So here, I would love for it to be a situation where when the set in a year or so, the set is sold out and everyone is like, crap, I did not buy enough. right? I should have bought more. The prices are going crazy. I need all these cards. The new mechanics are awesome. Um, so again, like I'm we're not going to have like big sales that happen. This is the price. This is how you can get packs. Period. It's not going to go lower. At least sold through us. And then we're hoping this new game mechanic. While like it's super cool, and that's like the whole direction that this game is going. But it's also purposely like kind of small, and it's really sort of like a teaser for land ultimately, which is when this game mechanic is going to really shine. And like you said, the game, you weren't as excited until you saw the game mechanic, and I agree, and that's why I was so excited when they made that. Our devs made that sort of a demo of it, because like to me, I know this is what the game needs, right? It needs this additional level of player engagement and player skill to combat the simplicity of botting right now, and just like it just makes it such a much more fun, engaging game, and that's what we ultimately need for this ecosystem to thrive. So I'm super excited for the opportunity to get this out in this small way and have it be tied to Rebellion, to give people a taste of what's coming with land.
How many packs is Yabapmatt buying from the pre-sale?
That's a good question. I'm definitely gonna do the 2,000 level to get the 15% bonus. I don't know. I'm gonna I typically, I try to get max level gold foil of all the cards. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't have that in alpha, and I think I have most of it in beta, but it's like my own game that I created, and I didn't even go all in back then. But going forward, I always want to make sure I have max level gold foil versions of all the cards. So I won't get that if I only buy 2,000 packs. So I'll see. My it's been super easy with Chaos Legion to just buy them off the market, and maybe I have the same mindset that most of our players have. Right. First and foremost, I'm a player, right, and I come at this from a player mindset. And my mindset is like I bought a ton of Chaos Legion packs, and they're just sort of sitting there. And so I'm planning to buy fewer in Rebellion than I did in Chaos Legion, and I might be screwing myself because I want to get all the max level gold foil cards, and they may not be available at reasonable prices on the market. And I may say, you know what, crap, I should have bought more packs. But that's good. I want to come at it from the perspective of if I'm just a regular normal player in this ecosystem, what would I do? And that's where I've come up with. I want to hit the 2,000 level to get the max bonus, and then just try to get buy the gold foil cards I'm missing on the market. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I know you're a player. We run into each other occasionally on the battlefield, and we go back and forth a decent amount. And I know that's the one thing I am, is I'm a player, and I enjoy playing the game. And I could already tell that while I'm hesitant now to buy these packs, the first time I play a game and I think I win, and that summoner does something to my team and I lose because of it, that's when I think the FOMO is going to start to hit a lot of players, because they're going to be like, ugh, I can't believe that just happened. I want to be able to do that too. And it's a very, very interesting thing to do, because I'm in the same boat where I'm like, where do I want to go here? I have extra Chaos Legion packs. They're not really worth anything. I don't really want to sell them this cheap. They're just sitting on my account. Do I buy a whole bunch of packs? Do I not buy a whole bunch of packs? And that's why I'm actually a big fan of the way you've designed this sale, because the reason why I'm not going crazy right now is I go, okay, they're just going to be this price. There's 10 million packs. It's supposed to last a year. I should have time over the next, year to get these cards to the level I want and take my time. And that's where I think you're right, that while there is some people hyping up the pre-sale, I think that we are in a situation where a lot of players ended up with more than they needed last time. No ability to flip it like they had in the past. I mean, Untamed packs, beta packs, they made anybody who bought extra of those was super happy. Anybody who bought extra Chaos Legion packs, they're kind of sitting in a boat where they're like, okay, I don't want to do that again. So it's a good design to say that, hey, this is the price. It's not going to change, because it allows players who maybe are a little gun shy to kind of watch the market, see what happens, see the impact of the cards, and just buy their collection over the course of a couple months, and it shouldn't hurt you too much. You might have to fork a little bit out for these promo cards because they're going to be a little extra rare, but that's the only pain I see from anybody taking a kind of a more balanced approach coming into this set. And I like that because I feel like it protects the player base a little bit more from going too hard.
Yeah, I mean, that you said it, like protect the player base. You know, I'm very clear on the missteps we had with Chaos Legion, and like I'm here to fix that. And so not only obviously we want to do it the right way with Rebellion, but we also need to figure out, well, what are we going to do about all the people that have all these Chaos Legion packs and all these cards sitting on the shelves. So I talked about in the town square today, like I 100% plan to do a card burn event, like we did the DEC burn event back in May. Early next year, I'd like to do a card burn event, and get some really good prizes that just as heavily as possible incentivize people to burn cards and combine cards, you know, to give like benefits for max level cards being burned. Because, you know, we still also, we have an oversupply, right? And if we have land out and people hopefully are super psyched for land, not only because like 1.5 will actually be out, but also they'll see this new mechanic and the potential of it, and they'll know hopefully how valuable item and spell cards are going to be. So people are going to want cards for land, and again, you're going to want, you know, max level or combined cards, not level 1 cards for land. And we have an opportunity for people to earn other prizes by burning cards. You know, all that's going to be really focused on the Chaos Legion set, even if it's not strictly limited to Chaos Legion. Like people aren't going to be burning their alpha cards, you know. So
I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Who knows? But so yeah, that's really that's my plan ultimately. For Chaos Legion, and my hope is that eventually the value for Chaos Legion will be there, and maybe land is the case, because like I mentioned on the town square earlier, I've literally bought like 4,000 max level, you know, common and rare Chaos Legion and reward cards off the market just to fill up my region, right? I need 5,000 cards in total to max out my region, and I think initially a lot of people aren't going to spend the money to do that, to max out everything, which is understandable, right? But my hope is that, and that's because, you know, not all the value's there yet, right? Land 1.5 is a relatively simple, watered down, like first version of things. The rewards aren't really there. Research is kind of a nebulous thing for this unknown secret. The SPS rewards are relatively small in dollar values. So, you know, I expect people to be a little hesitant about putting too much money into it. But again, my hope is that with this new mechanic highlighting how cool item and spell cards are going to be, people are going to start even, and then we're going to release the details of Land 2.0. All this stuff, I hope, starts people thinking like, you know what, I want to plan for the long term. I want to start, you know, putting a lot in now so I can get a head start and be at the top of the game, you know, when Land 2.0 comes out, and, you know, when the secret is revealed and all that stuff, and when you can actually produce item and spell cards, because it's a long game right now. Like if you're going to be putting in for land and stuff, you gotta take the long view. It's not going to pay off next month or even probably in the next 6 months. But if you're going to be around for the next few years, you know, starting to really build up your land and getting your research and getting your max level cards and your plots now is going to be the way to go.
And talking about fixing mistakes from the past, on a totally unrelated topic, is Biz going to be barred from competing for the top 6? Asking for a friend.
He's not going to be barred, but we are going to have new requirements about the designs of the cards. So the designs are going to have to match not only the theme of the game, but also the theme of the element or splinter. So if you're going to do a dragon summoner, it's got to be dragony. And, you know, the company is going to have the ultimate, I guess, veto power over that. So we want people to design their own concepts and their own characters, but it's got to fit the theme.
So no more dragon pandas.
No more dragon pandas. If he wants to do an earth summoner, you know, that might fit much better. But yeah.
A question that some people are wondering too about the new set, and I don't know if you can comment on this other than maybe the general idea, but some people have felt some of the untamed legendary summoners, they were just a little too strong, meta defining all by themselves. Kitty, Jotun, Llama Kron is literally a tattoo on someone. Are you trying to go away from that in Rebellion when it comes to these airdrops? Is it going to be, or is it worth it to have those cards that inspire tattoos? I don't even know the answer, but I'm wondering where your mind is at with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance there. I think I do think in a lot of ways it was good for the game to have these like really strong, very valuable cards. We just have to make sure they're not like too crazy. We might have gone a little overboard with some of them, definitely, and it wasn't on purpose, right? Sometimes it's hard to know how powerful certain combinations. Like I did not see Lamacron ahead of time. So my hope is that clearly the legendary summoners are sort of really like the main lifeblood of the sets ever since beta with Prince Renan and all that stuff. So I want that to be the case, right? So they're going to be the airdrops through the new conflict system that we have. They're going to be added into packs. And that's gonna. I still want those legendary summoners to be the main thing in that set. Like when you open those packs and you get that gold foil legendary summoner, like that's gonna be the holy grail of stuff, of a pack opening. I still want that to be the case. So I want them to be like super powerful, but we try to. The issue I think with some Jotun and Llama Kron and all that stuff. Was that they were just usable like almost all the time. And what makes Splinterlands unique, really, from most other games, is that you can have these cards that are just so powerful, but only in these certain situations. And that's where we want to fit in. So I want these cards to be like crazy awesome, like they're just like amazing, and you got to have them. But only in some percentage of the battles, right? And in all the other battles, you got to know, like, this is not the time. You don't want to use this card here. You don't want to use it in these rule sets or in this, mana cost. So, that's the balancing act that we do. And I hope we can hit it with these legendary summoners for this round. And I think we have, since we have literally an entirely new mechanic to play with here. I'm hoping that we can both make them like super exciting, as well as well balanced.
I have to admit, I do think that and then I'll let you go, Bebeomega. The current legendary summoners of Modern, the ones from Chaos Legion, they are pretty balanced and they are more specific for certain times. And so it does feel like whoever designed those, if it was Call Me Tim, then he's got a feeling for how to do that. So I am excited for that. But I do think it is kind of nice to have tattoo inspiring combos out there in the world.
I think we went a little too much the other way with the Chaos Legion summoners. Like, they are cool, they are valuable, they are good to have, but they just aren't as tattoo inspiring as you mentioned. So I would err more toward the side of the untamed summoners, but hopefully not go quite as meta defining. That's the sweet spot, I think.
Without releasing any details that you cannot, I heard like from a lot of people from the community that everybody wants new in the Rebellion set to see some cards that are actually making Dallin look good. So are you planning to make Dallin great again for the first time?
To make what good?
Dallin
great again.
There's kind of a community sentiment that we love death cards, but you guys hate them. So because the death team never got one of those summoners that really took over the game. Mimosa had like a couple months because she was there alone, but that was about it.
They get Dallin. Dallin is great, but just he needs some cards to make him shine.
Sorry, this is more for the People's Guild who's out there. He loves that death team, and he loves Dallin. He tries to talk about its praises, but he might be the only one. So
Yeah, you're right, and it's not on purpose. Like we don't go like, oh, I need to make the fire card or the earth card the best. I don't know why it has happened. I think we focus a lot on debuffs for death. That's like their thing, and those just haven't been as powerful as the buffs or the other abilities. But like now that we know that, we should know to give them more, right? To account for the fact like if debuffs aren't as powerful as the buffs, we need to give them more. So I haven't, like I said, I haven't been the one specifically designing the cards for Rebellion. I haven't even seen the stats on a lot of them yet,
You can
or
pull
had
some
much time with
strings.
them.
You can
Yeah.
pull some strings. Yeah, sure you can.
Um, but yes, I don't know specifically about Dallin or where Death stands, but I do 100% agree with you. It's one of my favorite splinters and elements since like Lord of Darkness in Alpha was one of my favorite cards. And it does need some love, relatively speaking.
Okay. Good to hear. I'm happy with this answer.
Yeah, kind of an interesting question that was asked earlier. Do you have in your mind an ideal player base for Splinterlands? Because I don't, but I was wondering if you have like a sweet spot that you think prevents it from maybe being too many people here. Because in my mind, it's just as many as we can get.
Yeah, no. We should get as many as we can get. But I want them to be like the right type of player. So like in the last bull market, I feel like we had a lot of the wrong type of player. It's people who are looking for how can I, get 1,000% ROI and get out of the game, right? It's more like just a quick, get in, get out money making opportunity. So that's not what we want. Um, but I want people who are Magic the Gathering players or Hearthstone players or just like people who like these games. And it's not just the gameplay itself, but it's also the whole economic aspect of it. So that's what was one of the things that made me want to start Splinterlands was I loved Hearthstone and I loved the gameplay, but I also really loved the economic aspect of Magic the Gathering. And I wasn't as into Hearthstone because there was none of that, right? So I want people who just really like not only the game, the battles, but the whole ecosystem that we're building here. That's all part of the game, in my opinion. So that just really like that and are here because they enjoy it and they want to participate in it for many years to come. And a goal is always to profit from it, but not like a quick, get in and get out profit, but more like participate and stick around for many years and build up a valuable collection profit. So that's we can't have too many of those type of players here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I've kind of harped on it for a long time that this game, like, biggest challenge to me is getting more of those players who don't just want to come in and like buy a bronze deck and extract as much as they can, or buy a silver deck and extract as much as they can. Because for me, when I got in, at being an ex-Magic player, being someone who played Hearthstone for a little while, and even Gods Unchained, I liked this game because there was this community aspect, there was this Discord, there was this Hive blog chain. I mean, the game basically turned me into a YouTuber, and for a little while, I got, some videos getting tens of thousands of views, which was tripping me out because I was just talking about games I play. But the idea that you could build all of that within here, I try to like inspire people, like, to just come play the game and build your collection. And like I've never seen, like, there's a resistance to that in the crypto world, though. I've seen too many people just like, I want to ROI as quick as I can, and instead of making one gold deck, I'm going to make 3 silver decks. Becomes a
show me
conversation.
the
And
money.
I am glad the SPS staking has done a lot to discourage that. I think it was a very good move. I was a little critical at the time. I still think it devalued cards a little bit, and that's just something we have to live through. But if it works out and SPS does do some of the things we think it can do, I think that'll be forgiven, because we had to get a lot of SPS into the game to be able to continue to play at those higher levels. So it's all kind of an interesting mechanic here that is just we're all hoping everything makes it to that next place. And it does seem like, at least with some of the comments have said, you seem more relaxed, more prepared. Do you feel like you're definitely getting to the place where we're going to be able to see this continue for the next couple of years in your mind?
I mean, I think so, because it's the first time where we've really had a long-term game plan. Like, I know exactly how I think the right way is to set up the whole economy. We have the long-term plan for the gameplay with items and spells, and for land and how we get there. We've never had that in the past. I mean, it is literally like us just like scrambling, like, oh, let's do this, or let's try this, or this is cool, let's put this in. And there was no real long-term vision of how this all was going to work, and that's just because it was new, right? With no one had done this before. We were just fumbling around, trying new things and seeing what would happen. And it surprisingly managed to work out pretty well, generally, but we had a lot of issues. A lot of things were disjointed and didn't work well together. I mean, the whole reward card system was a rush, because we were just giving out packs, and then that didn't work. And it was like always just like rushing a new thing that would just cause, we kick the can down the road. But I think like we have a much more clear overall plan of like how we release new cards, how we still give value to the older cards, how we make the gameplay more fun, how we set up the economy properly to funnel that value into the SPS token, and then also require people to have the SPS token to capitalize on that value. So now it's really just a matter of building it all, right? Which is an easier problem than figuring out what to build. I know it's been difficult for us, and it's going to take resources, it's going to take time, but like I know that given time and resources, we can go do it. So that's exciting to me. It's like clear vision. I'm excited as a player for that vision, and like I just know as long as I wait long enough, it's going to happen.
Talking about vision, there were a lot of stuff brought as ideas from Weird Beard while he was still in the company, and there were like, I remember there was some streams with like some Zoom meetings with streamers, like just to showcase what his ideas are. And now that he's not here, and I believe probably those things were never part of your particular vision, but do you feel like you can take some of those? Like, do you see some of those seeing the light of the day? Like, is there any plans for any of those to be implemented after the change?
Yeah, if you're talking of things like we're talking about like battle passes
Yeah.
and different game modes and things
Arena
like
mode, yeah, arena runs and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, so I love all those things. I mean, like in Hearthstone, for example, I pretty much exclusively played arena runs. But so again, it's not as a matter of those things being bad ideas or things that shouldn't go into the game. It's just like, yeah, I talked about earlier, we need to be very clear about our prioritization. We also want to build. I don't want to build those as kind of one-offs. I feel like as they were planned, they were sort of these like one-off things that weren't very well integrated into the rest of the system. And a lot of it was like, oh, we have these arena runs and you get rewards. It's like, and that's a common thing, that I hear all the time. Like, we want to do these features, and the reason people are going to play with it because there's going to be great rewards. But the details of what these rewards are and like how it's going to work, it's like, how many of these rewards are there? What do they do? Why do people want them? And you can't just keep like throwing out more and more rewards for everything, because then it just gets into this same situation where it's just like too much stuff, right? It dilutes all the assets. So it's actually really hard. The rewards are actually the hardest part. And I think that's what I typically start with. So like in land design, I start with, in my mind, like, what is the goal of this? And obviously items and spells is the main thing, but there's also other rewards like the Secret of Praetoria project, rewards and different things. And I start with the rewards, and I make sure like I have things that people I think will really want and value, and I work backwards from that and build out a really cool way for people to get those things. And so it's not that arena runs or battle passes are bad ideas, but if I don't know where the real value for those things comes from, what the rewards are, like I can't decide if that's a good thing to spend time on or put in the game. So what I am focusing on is building land, and I'm also using land and the rewards on land to help incentivize all sorts of other things in the game that I think need incentivizing. So like guilds and guild power, right? So there's specific parts of the land expansion that'll start in phase 2 that you're going to need to participate in guilds and guild power if you wanna have. There's going to be things that you're going to get from ranked battle chests and stuff like that. So at some point, when we do arena runs, and that maybe can coincide with boss fights, which I know we've been planning to do for years and years. And if we do battle passes, like I just I want to factor that into like the full vision of land and guilds and ranked battles, and just put it all together and start from like, what is it ultimately that people are getting? What is the value here? And then work backwards. So it may be something that comes with like item and spell cards. There's lots of things on how you're going to produce item and spell cards, how you're going to get gold foil versions, how you're going to get legendary ones versus common ones. And we can work backwards and say like, hey, here's an opportunity that we have for a reward that people want. And we don't have a way yet that we're giving them out. And that could lead to then saying, okay, well, now we can put in arena runs. Now there can be like a specific thing, and we can add it into the lore of the land expansion. Like, hey, these arena runs are fighting back, pirates that are attacking, or like Chaos Legion that's attacking Praetoria, and you need to fight against them, right? And this is the way you do it. And then if you do it, you get this special, resource that then helps you produce better item and spell cards. I'm not saying any of this specifically is actually going to happen. I'm just telling you the way, the way that I think about these things, and how like arena runs are great, battle passes are great, but you can't just say like, we want to put these things in and there's going to be some nebulous rewards, because no one's going to care about it. And like, no one's going to play arena runs. They'll try it out. They'll say like, this is cool. But if there really aren't like valuable rewards that people care about, I think people are eventually just going to be like, I'm going to focus on other things. So that's a very long-winded answer to that question.
No, thank you for the answer.
Yeah, thank you. That was pretty exciting to hear. I'm going to recap something you went over earlier for Tails, who just joined us. He was asking if there were any near-term roadmap plans for all the extra Chaos Legion packs. You did tell us that it is something that you're aware of, and I think the main thing you pointed out was that we're going to have a card burning event of some kind in the future to get rid of some of that extra amount. And then if you didn't see it yet, but I know you did, we burned a lot of cards recently, Tails, and I think you covered that. So there is some natural things that are getting rid of some of that excess stuff, and then I believe we have at least a card burning coming, if not some other things you're working on.
Well, and land, right? I mean, so land obviously gives a ton of value to the older cards, but there's just like, my hope is that land, as we get to phase 2 and future phases, people are going to start to see like that it's extremely valuable to max out your land and not just get a single land plot with some alpha cards, but you might want to get hundreds of land plots and fill them up with max level Chaos Legion common cards. And the hope is with the card burning events and burning for DEC, there's actually just not going to be that many Chaos Legion common cards or reward cards or whatever. And so people are going to be like, oh crap, I better start opening packs, and I better start buying Chaos Legion. All of a sudden, hopefully, like $1.50 or whatever Chaos Legion packs are going for. My hope is that that's going to seem cheap at some point for the cards that they contain, in order to have them work on land when people start to really see the value in land, which will take some time. But to fill up 150,000 plots with 5 max level cards, I mean, there's literally not enough cards in the entire game, I don't think, right now to do that. And that's not even counting any burning. So that's my hope. I think we have actually all the mechanisms in place to give those Chaos Legion cards value. It's just going to take time.
Do you want to drop a little bit info on how you're seeing the whole new player experience? Like anything? I mean, it haven't been talked much on your side. I know now the plans are a little bit different because there are different priorities. But since you did have it on the roadmap anyways, one of the 5 points that were there, like, do you have any vision towards it already forming? Like, do you have any early alpha that you want to share about it?
I mean, I don't have specific alpha. It's one of those things that's been frustrating to me. We've been in like this difficult financial situation for so long that we've never been able to sit down and focus on things that give us longer term benefit, like new player experience. And it's always been how can we release new features that bring in money today. Um, and so part of what I'm doing over the next 3 months, which is not reducing expenses, and raising capital in addition to just getting like Rebellion and land out, which we need to do, is to just get us in a position where we can say like we're good financially for a number of years, so we can start working on a project that's going to take some number of years potentially to pay off, but pay off big. And the new player experience project is what I see as that, right? It's not a quick thing. It might be a quick thing to implement and start playing around with ideas, but then we also need to work on, okay, how do we get new players into the game? How do we market it? Because the money we've spent on marketing is sort of wasted in a lot of ways, because the experience once we get them in the door is not there. So most of them leave. So it's a longer term project, and I just like need to get us into a financial situation where we can take on a long-term project that we know like this might not pay off for a couple years, and that's okay. We're planning for the long term. And so what I see for that is I've talked about this in the past, but like when new players come in, we have this tutorial. It's not that great, and a lot of people just skip it. So I'd like actually a lot more just like little help tips popping up throughout their normal play. And it's not in any particular order, but if they go play a battle, like just based on what happens in the battle, we can just pop up different tips that explain something. Like if they have once a card without melee attack or with ranged attack gets into the first position, whenever that happens, it pops up something explaining that this card can't attack now. Just stuff like that. So you don't have to go through a specific tutorial, but you just play the game. And like, hopefully as people have questions, like what is happening, what happened there, we just have help tips that pop up and give it to them. And not just in battles. When they go to their card collection, I want help tips to pop up being like, hey, you can get this card from booster packs, and maybe you have an X% chance of getting it, or you can go on the market right here and buy it. Oh, and also, or you can rent it on the market, right? And it's sort of explaining, popping up, say like, maybe when they get a battle with some weird rule sets, saying, it's really important in Splinterlands to get a wide variety of cards and have a one-click, rental or purchase option. So like, just we have something that just. It shouldn't be too hard to have like set rentals where someone can list a bronze level modern deck for rent for whatever it is, $10 a month, and we can just have a one-click button where people come in and say, hey, click here, and pay with credits and rent a whole bronze set for the entire season. And we can highlight also that they're renting it from another player. So a player who bought the cards is actually getting that money, not the company. So you can say like, if you want, you can spend more money and you can purchase a whole bronze level, Chaos Legion or Rebellion set. And then you can use it to play yourself, or you can use it to rent out in the future. So it like, if you rent, you don't have that value of the assets. So, that's my overall plan for how we make a much better new player experience. It's just like adding these quick one-click options and help tips all over the interface, all over the website for all the different parts of things to like, just help players through the entire process. And when they first earn SPS, explain, show them, hey, you have this staked SPS, it gives you voting power, and in the DAO you can unstake it, you can burn it for DEC, like it just everything you can think of. It's just like a whole overhaul of like a built-in sort of tutorial as players go through the site.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to approach it, because I know something as someone who's playing this game for years, that I forget sometimes is just how second nature all of this is to me.
Yeah.
but how absolutely confusing some of this stuff could be to a new player, and it's harder to get support, I think, instantly than it should be. That's something that I think, people like us, we're trying to work on it, but like it's hard for me to think about going back and doing those videos again explaining how to play the game, because like, well, I made those years ago, but maybe I need to make them again at some point once we get a little bit further and there is new things that do come into the game. um,
And it's something we're going to have to commit to long term. It's not like a one and done thing, right? Because we're constantly adding new things to the game and changing things. So that needs to be just sort of part of our regular process, right? Is constantly keeping those help tips updated. And we need to start looking at analytics and metrics of like, when people come in, where do they drop off? What questions do people have? And just have, I want to have some people who's like, that's their job, like forever, is this new player experience. So they're responsible for keeping things up to date, for looking at the analytics, for communicating with new players, doing like focus groups, whatever it is they do. That's not like a one and done project. That's just like, we need a little team that like that's their focus forever.
Is PV possible, probable, or never mind, see you later? And I don't mean like the boss fights. I mean just like a personal story mode, whatever it is. Like, is it something that might see one day, light of the day, without like committing to anything?
Well, I would say that would be boss fights. Like, I think that's our PvE would be boss fights, and that would be within a story mode, campaign mode. So I like PvE. PvE is a little harder to do in a real money environment, right?
It doesn't have to be with rewards, like meaningful rewards. You probably would say that then nobody's going to play it, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are pretty much very deep into the whole lore thing, and they would like to explore it. But I understand that it's probably seen as wasted resources. It's not going to bring new players.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so yes, I think people would like that and they would do it, but I'm not sure it would have as much staying power. So I would like to, again, I would like to not just do a one-off thing for it. I'd like to really integrate it, and I think land is a great way. Like my thinking is sort of like, we'd have these boss monsters. There's a lot of area in Praetoria that's not player owned, right? So we can have those areas be occupied, by these boss monsters, and we can have storylines that our creative team comes up with for why it's like beneficial for Praetorians to go and fight them. And I think it's very easy to tie that into the overall land expansion and the secret of Praetoria. Like, there's maybe some old ancient artifacts in this area that's guarded by the bear whale, right? So everyone can independently go and help fight this monster to unlock this next phase of the Secret of Praetoria project, for example. So I think I would prefer, even if it doesn't have like, it's not direct rewards, but it has at least some tie-in. So like, you have a reason for doing it, and it generally like goes with the whole story and everything else we're doing in the game. And so that's what I want to do. But again, like I just can't, look, we don't even have land 1.5 out yet, right? So I have in my mind all these ideas and plans and things for this.
That's what we want to hear. I mean, we don't want, like, we want the long term, like at least me, like the question I'm asking is like seeing your long-term vision, because that's what excites me. I mean, today, tomorrow, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, so the long-term vision is all this stuff, right? We hear all the ideas from the community and from Weirdbeard, and I have my own ideas, and Aggroed has tons of ideas, and Nate has tons of ideas, and these are all in there, like they're all for consideration. And as we start going, okay, land 2.0, we got that down, and now we're getting into like 3.0 and items and spells and the Secret of Praetoria. And so then we start saying, okay, what are all the ideas on the shelf, right? What can we take in? What makes sense at this point in the product? So that's how I look at it and plan. But the long-term vision is all that stuff. I think I want to have every piece of everything, because there's people that like, there's all different types of players who like all different types of things, and I want Splinterlands to be the place for all of them.
Okay, switching topics a tiny bit, but one other thing you went over today in the town hall that I think is at least worth touching on is the idea that we hire Claiborne to represent the DAO, and kind of how you envision the DAO working. Because I'm someone who's been a little critical of the idea of the DAO holding DEC. I basically voted down every other time anyone said, hey, turn our coins into DEC. But I did support the idea of us sharing the revenue from this the sale, but it is throwing one thing that like I'm not super comfortable with, and I know you've mentioned maybe they'll just burn it, but I'm a little worried about even our own player base's greed. That money is going to be sitting there, and if I have enough SPS, I could theoretically say, hey, the DAO's going to hire me and it's going to pay me this much money a year. And now I've joked about that with some friends in the past that there's some worry with it. And now today we have the first, well, let's hire somebody to work at the DAO. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You made a lot of really good points in my mind why we need a representative for the DAO. But once the DAO has all this money, are we comfortable that we're ready for us being responsible for all that money, and it not just becoming almost a hindrance that the DAO has that much cash?
Well, I mean, the DAO already does have quite a lot of cash, and even not just in Splinterlands assets. It's like got over like $1.75 million worth of non-Splinterlands assets right now. So the DAO is pretty well endowed.
I'm living in a dream world where you sell 5 million packs at $25 million, and the DAO gets an influx of, at that point, $12.5 million, right? And I realize that wouldn't all happen at once, but it is a lot more than is in there today.
Yeah.
And that's where, if there's one thing crypto has taught me is if there's an opportunity to exploit something that is easy to see, somebody will do it. So I just want to make sure that as a community, are we ready for that kind of money to be sitting there? And are we ready for us to have control of that? And are people maybe not protecting it enough? Because I see SPS this low and the possibility for that much money flowing in, and I worry about, could somebody take over the DAO relatively easily right now?
So let me start with that last point. Taking over the DAO, I assume by taking over the DAO you mean like getting a majority of staked SPS. I mean, that's like 300 million staked SPS. So like if someone wants to go try to buy 300 million staked SPS off the market, that would be fantastic. That would be great. So no, and that's what you have to look into, because a lot of DAOs actually do have that problem, and that's an attack that happens on DAOs, where like tons of tokens are available for cheap. Not a lot of people are staking or participating, and people can literally buy up majority stakes. So that's one of the things you have to evaluate with the Splinterlands project. And I get asked that also, like from even like potential investors and things, like hearing about the DAO and all this stuff is like they just kind of assume that like Splinterlands, the company, controls the majority of these tokens because it's so normal, right? In these blockchain platforms and things that like the creator company just maintains a majority stake. So yeah, I mean, everyone needs to look at that with any project, including Splinterlands, like that, like how distributed are the SPS tokens? Who has control, like, and how much control do they have? And even if Splinterlands were to stake all of its tokens, and we pooled together all of our my tokens and Agro's tokens and all of our employees, and we all got together and tried to do something, like I don't think we would even have like 20% of the vote, which is great. And so it is a little scary. This whole thing's scary, and I've said that a bunch of times, that what we're doing is new, it hasn't really been tried a lot, and it is scary. But that's what I'm here for. Right? I'm not here to do things the old way of like just have the company make all the decisions and hope they do it well. Like I'm here to have the full first player owned and operated game, and so far I've been very encouraged by it. I mean, one thing that I've seen from the DAO is it's hard to get money out of it, which is good, right? So I think, all this DEC going into the DAO, it's going to be hard to get it out, and you're going to really need to have an actual real good proposal that you can really convince a lot of people with all different viewpoints. Like they all have to be on board and together say, yeah, you know what? We really think this is going to be very beneficial for the ecosystem to spend this money before you're going to get the 2/3 of the vote to pass it. And that's exactly what you want. And that's why I see, all the DEC going into the DAO being similar to it being burned, even if it's not actually burned, because the only way that's coming out is if there's like a real good opportunity that you can get all these people to agree on, because getting people in the Splinterlands community to agree on stuff is no easy task. So I'm very excited for that. And I think the DAO, I think this thing with Clay and the DAO having employees is really critical also to it being a much more official and real entity that is independent from the Splinterlands company. We get a lot of a lot of flack and a lot of FUD people saying that like, oh, the DAO is just a total sham, and it's just really a way for Splinterlands still gets everything we want, and we can deflect blame to the community, which is 100% not the case, because if it were up to me, like a lot of DAO votes would have gone differently. But the DAO having its own employees who don't answer to me or the Splinterlands company is super important, and I think will provide a lot of value. But you want to be careful; you don't want to go crazy, right? So you want to have you want to pay them reasonable amounts, and you want to make sure they're really worth it.
Yeah, talking about the DAO, and it's maybe a little bit shifted the topic, but I'm wondering if the deal that the DAO gets for the rebellion, is it like a honeymoon suite deal to, try things out, or is it something like a promotional deal, which in future sets won't be as sweet? Is like just do you see it as something that is going to stick for next sets, like in the future, or is it something just to get things going? So that's why it's too good to be true in a way sounding.
I would like it to be the case going forward, but I don't know how it's going to work out. So this is an experiment. So ultimately, obviously, the company needs to be able to pay all of its bills. It needs to be able to pay the developers and the hosting and everything, and also to be profitable. But I want that to be also not just because the company is actually making revenue, but because the company holds a ton of SPS and the value of the SPS can increase. So it's actually kind of different. It's like one of those things that's different with a blockchain Web3 company than a traditional company, is that, and it's one of the things I try to talk to potential investors about that's like different and unusual and also a little scary, is like, we may not even need the Splinterlands company to actually make revenue in the future. It may just be a situation where the value of our SPS tokens keeps increasing so much that we can sell them off slowly over time, and hopefully there's enough demand coming in generally to soak up our selling, where that can pay all of our bills, and all of the direct revenue can go into the DAO. Is a really cool idea and concept of a way we can all, the company and the DAO and the players can all benefit together. So the answer is I don't know, because I don't really know how this is going to go. But my goal is to get it to a situation where the DAO ultimately gets even better deals as we go forward. I mean, potentially there won't be any revenue split, and the DAO just gets 100% of the revenue. But that just makes the SPS token value go up so much that the company is super happy and fine and doesn't need any revenue. I don't know if that's realistic. But I'm trying, I'm pushing it in that direction, and we're going to see, we're going to take it one release at a time, I guess.
On the same note, do you think that at some point the DAO might start being responsible for the expenses? It's like, in a way, the DAO starts owning the assets and just hiring you as a company. And if the whole idea is for the game to be decentralized in a way that no matter what happens, it will keep running, do you see that happening down the line, where little by little expenses are actually transferred to the DAO itself?
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I mean, we sort of are doing that in like the 250,000 to pay for Rebellion development is, a transferring of some of the expenses to the DAO. So we could do that more and more. Again, if you're talking about long-term vision, so I would like it to get to a point where I have a whole like little brainstorm document where I have how we can make decentralized Splinterlands battle servers. So, we run the servers to process the battles and everything right now, but I'd love it to be a case where, anyone can run their own battle server, sort of like how anyone can run their own Minecraft server, right? So, and then the DAO would sort of, I guess not necessarily, I was thinking not the DAO would approve, but like, if you want to set up and run a battle server, you would have to like bond a certain amount of SPS tokens for every battle that you can support on your server. And maybe you would earn a portion of the SPS or other rewards for battles that happen through your server. To keep the battle servers honest, so they couldn't just like, process the battles incorrectly, there would be a challenge mechanism. So if I play a battle on so-and-so's server and like it doesn't play out properly, I can submit a challenge via the blockchain, and they have to prove by providing the signed messages from each player that those players actually submitted the teams and decisions that they did, and then so you can verify that how the battle was supposed to play out. And it would be possible to prove whether it was done properly or not. And if it was, not done properly, the battle server would lose a portion of their bonded SPS. So the battle servers would have to put up economic value to keep them honest. And then it would be a situation where, Splinterlands the company would hopefully be one of many different organizations around the world running these battle servers and earning off of it. So that type of stuff is where I think we would get to, of like, not necessarily the DAO directly paying expenses, but the DAO would be subsidizing. Maybe it has a reward pool of SPS or DEC or whatever for people running these battle servers, rather than taking it from the player's reward pool. And that's how the DAO would essentially pay for these services to be run. So we're getting like really like long-term vision things in my mind.
And thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, this is the stuff that really excites me. I mean, it's like, I just have like level upon level upon level of how we can like decentralize this even more and incentivize, outside parties to do things. And it's, it's a little frustrating how far out a lot of these things are. But my hope is, as we get more resources and, maybe when the next bull run comes along, we can actually have, teams that are just dedicated to making these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, town halls and town squares are like where you can focus on what is like now. And I was like hoping in this stream more we get like the full picture, because what I found out is when times are like salty and whatnot, people are just losing sight of the big picture, and that sometimes makes all the difference. Like if they zoom out a little bit, if they have the whole vision to where we are actually heading, it will be way easier to swallow where we are now, because in a way that will give them something to look forward to, instead of like wondering, are we going to get SPS to pass 2 cents today, or are we going to get DEC to back next week, or how much money we can make reselling those cars. It's just like I'm just seeing that there is sometimes lack of seeing the big picture, focusing on the daily ups and downs of the tokens.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that earlier. Like we, Yeah, that's not the type of people that this game is for. If you're here for the, a quick return or to like pull out more than you put in any like less than a year time frame, you're going to be disappointed. And that's not what this is about. If you're here just because you genuinely like what we're doing and you generally want to see this really new and unprecedented ideas being built out over the next 5 years, like then I hope you're going to be very, very happy with how everything turned out. Just like the people who, got bought in when we initially launched the game in alpha, and they were here not for a quick return for the most part. They were here because they thought this could build into something really big, years down the road, and that worked out really well. And it took a while. So if you're getting in now, that's the type of thing too. It's like, where is this going to be 5 years from now? And you gotta build for that mindset.
I'm just completing 5 years this month, I think in 12 days. So
Awesome. Yeah.
that's
So
exciting. Yeah, that's exciting anniversary.
Yeah, that's true. I
yeah.
didn't think about it, but I've been here that long as well. So it's definitely a thing. I have to admit, when I first joined, it was just something to do. And then it was something exciting. And then it got ridiculously exciting for a couple of years there. I remember my funny story is like one day because I didn't pay any attention to it because I was just collecting cards and playing the game, and I went on to Peak Monsters and it's like, oh, your cards are worth $980,000. And I was like, what? And then people go, why didn't you sell them? I'm like, well, because I play the game. I mean, I'm not what? I don't want to quit. And so it's a funny story to be able to recant, and it's just something I think we might see again, depending on the way things work here. So it's a definitely, an interesting thing to live through once and try to see what can happen as we go forward again here into this next kind of phase of the game that I'm seeing you build.
Yeah. And the hope is if we can get anywhere close to achieving this whole vision, that will seem low, right? For those really old, valuable assets. I mean, it's like, the first time Bitcoin went up to $1,000, and that seemed insane. Like I remember that, like that was just like nuts to me. But now it's like ridiculously cheap, So obviously I have no idea what's going to happen, and there's no financial advice here. But it's just if we can really build this out, honestly, I feel like it's going to be a no-brainer for all the people around the world who are fans of these types of games, who are fans of Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Hearthstone and all this stuff. Like, once we get the resources and the production quality and everything up to that level, eventually, this is just going to be the future of digital gaming. That's what I say. Splinterlands is. It's the future. It's the future of digital gaming. So, like, just everyone's going to be doing this. It's not going to be a weird new thing anymore. It's just going to be gaming and how it works. And that's just such a huge level beyond where we're at now, that like who knows what things are going to be like as we move towards that.
Percentage wise, how close you would say you are to completing the 2.0 white paper? Because I'm waiting for that book for a long time, man.
I am close. I would say it's like 80 to 90%. I just haven't had time to finish it right now, right? There's a lot of stuff that I've had to deal with and work on with this whole transition and restructure. So I have not put any time into finishing up that last part. But I think even if it's not 100% done, obviously even the 1.5 white paper wasn't 100% done, but when we released it, in the sense that like a lot of changes were made afterwards. So I really do want to take some time to focus on like finishing up the things that clearly need to be fleshed out, and then just like putting it out there and saying, this is a first draft. You can get the idea of everything. We're going to get people's feedback, and it's going to be sort of a living document for a while. Rather than just saying, wait until we think everything is 100% buttoned up. I would think the community would appreciate that and understand that, it'll be changing, and they get the opportunity to see it earlier in the process.
can I get a signed first draft version of the white paper? Like I'll pay all the travel expense, like all the logistics, whatever needs to be. Do you
Should
think you
we
can
print
arrange
print
that?
it out and in like a nice little booklet or something?
Yes, with the with your signature, yeah. I'll
That's a
cover
cool
I'll
idea. I never
I'll
thought of
cover the
that.
expense on my part.
All right, yeah. I mean, sure. I don't see why not. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
I'll
there's one thing I'd like to release, sooner rather than later, even before the rest of the white paper is, one of the feedback I got from some people I was working internally with it is that like there's so much stuff, and when I'm just like writing about all the resources, when there's like a paragraph about each one and they're like on different Gitbook pages, um, it's really hard to envision how it all fits together. So I spent a lot of time working on a flow chart that includes like at a high level all the different buildings and all the different resources and what you need for what and what goes into here and how it all eventually leads into the secret of Praetoria and to items and spell creation. So that's one of the first things I want to release. Maybe that can be part of like when or shortly after the Land 1.5 release. It's like here's the flow chart, and I'll have the Nate would kill me if I didn't give him the opportunity to make it look pretty, because my version doesn't look pretty. So that's the first thing I expect will be released, and that's going to be part of the white paper. And I think it like really helps to give just an overview rather than reading paragraph after paragraph about these resources, just like seeing it from left to right. Here's how it all works.
when
Yeah,
Land
that
2.0
would
makes
be an exciting thing to see because I think that's one of the big things that a lot of us who maybe aren't paying attention as much to what you've said about the 50 resources and how some have to be earned from staking resources into LP pools and whatever else we don't even know about how some of them are going to have to be earned. It's a much deeper ecosystem, I think, than a lot of people are imagining. And that's why, like, really, when I had bought 2 tracks and I was going to sell one, and then I heard you talk about all that, and I'm like, you know what? I think I might want 200 land, and I'll just work my way into being able to use them all, because all of a sudden I realized just how much there was going to be to do within this ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I could share, the whole my thought process is I want this to be sort of like in a way like real life supply chains. And I want it to be a situation as much as possible where like even if you have a whole region, you can't cover the entire supply chain, or it doesn't make sense for you to cover it yourself. So like everybody needs to interface with everybody else through the markets, right? So like you won't be able to produce everything you need yourself. It would be more beneficial to kind of focus on certain things. You'll have certain land types that are more prevalent in your tracts or even your region that are better at producing certain resources. So you focus on those, and then you trade for everything else. So if we can do that, we'll have hopefully tons of market volume on this internal market, which means tons of rewards for players who provide liquidity on the market. And you'll need actual land plots to provide liquidity because you'll need storage units. Like if you want to provide in phase 2.0, in 1.5, you'll just be able to provide grain liquidity once that's out, right? And you don't need there's no concept of storage. But in phase 2, you want to provide grain liquidity or stone liquidity or Ulana seed liquidity or whatever, you need to actually have storage units built on land plots to store however much of that resource you want to provide as liquidity. And so that might be something that people just do, right? They just have their land and they don't produce any resources. They just decide, hey, there's not a lot of liquidity for this one thing. I'm going to build a whole bunch of storage for it, and I'm going to sort of corner the liquidity market, and I'm going to get all the fees for it. But then you'll also have to pair all of that with DEC. So that's one of the things I think people are sleeping on a little bit with DEC, or were, I guess, until recently. Is that not only are you going to need DEC for all the things we talked about, just the general like staking cards on land and all that stuff, and buying time crystals and building buildings and upgrading them, but like you're going to need DEC to pair with all of the resources and all of the liquidity pools, and like who knows how much that's going to be. And I'll also share that it's not only earning fees from the liquidity pools. You'll also, there's a resource that you can only earn by providing liquidity, and that's going to be a key resource in the whole land supply chain. So,
That's alpha, guys. Alpha, alpha.
no, this is alpha, yeah. So the thing is, like, if you're just producing your resources on your land and you are not providing liquidity yourself at all, you're going to need to buy this resource from people that are providing liquidity, and then you're going to need to buy it on the market, and that's going to give people who are providing liquidity for the liquidity resource. So like, and the supply chain, I think, and the chart that I was talking about, the flow chart, shows all this. Like, I tried to make it pretty intricate. So it's not, to get to actually like creating items and spells, like, you're going to need like all sorts of different resources, and you might have to refine them multiple times. So you're going to need, even just for food, for example, like grain is only going to be the food in 1.5, but in 2.0 there's going to be different foods for the different elements. So, yeah, and there are things like spark meal and Ulana bread and soul food. I don't remember all the different names, but each, like, a death element card will take different food that they eat. And so you'll need to combine grain in a mill with these elemental essences to create the different foods, and you're going to need to combine the essences from occupied land with magical resources to create those elemental essences. So there's going to be like, a few different steps and a few different buildings that you're going to need, either yourself or from the market, to even just make the food. And then you'll take all the other resources, and you'll need stone, and you'll need ore, and you'll need wood to construct all the buildings and maintain the buildings in order to harvest the different resources that you'll need to then refine potentially multiple times in order to actually get toward creating eventually an item or spell card.
When you're saying food, does it mean that will be the only food, or just more efficient food? Like,
I think it'll be more efficient, right? So I think, especially like right at the beginning, no one's going to have any of this food, so you'll be able to use grain. And I was actually thinking of a system where, as you level up buildings, the non-refined food, the basic grain, will become less and less efficient. So like, as it goes on, and as there are more liquid markets for these different types of food, you're going to have higher level buildings, and it'll get to a situation where, like, you just can't work on grain, and you're going to need the specific types of food. And all this will lead to, again, market volume, which I think is going to be so key to this whole thing, and how much DEC is going to need to be put into to providing liquidity. Is like, you're going to need to trade. You're going to need, like, people are going to have businesses, like someone with Attract, might just focus on making one kind of food. That's what they do. They make the one food for fire element monsters, and they sell it on the market, and they're producing it, the cheapest, in their region or territory, and that's their thing. And so then if you have more fire element land, you'll be buying it from them on the markets to produce whatever it is you're producing.
Yeah, and also a question.
Yeah. You're definitely putting the chat in a land is not going to be cheap anymore. I clearly don't have enough. And I've told people multiple times, I'm like, I have 200 land, and I always thought in my mind I'd be doing what you said. I'm like, I'm probably going to be specializing on like 2 things, and definitely my lands are almost all desert, so it's going to be like something that I could do in the desert. And everyone's telling me, no, you'll be crafting everything, and I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
you'll be in a way, because you'll be buying whatever you don't have, so you'll be able to sustainably create items and spells by.
He's convinced I'm a land whale with 200. I'm not at all.
I mean, it depends what you consider a whale, but there aren't actually a lot of players by number, I don't think, that have that many plots. So you're in definitely the top percentages of landowners. I noticed there's a question in the chat of whether or not I'm actually playing. So I just want to clarify. I do have a friend who plays on my account sometimes. So I definitely do not have a time to play as much as my account plays, especially with the recent changes. So I try to make sure I get in a decent amount of games every season myself. But I do also have someone that that I kind of deal with to play on my account because I do want to get those reward cards.
Yeah. And there
Speaking of
was a
the rewards
question.
cards, since you
Wait,
brought it
before
up,
we go.
I did
No,
want to ask a question. Or do you
don't
want to go first?
don't run from land because we're still on land, I think
Okay, fine, fine. Go ahead.
it's a very important question, which I saw also gathering the magic ask, but I was also wanting to figure out: are the storage going to be for every different resource a different storage, or like a universal storage for, let's say, for certain tier of resources?
For every different type of resource will kind of have its own storage. So I it's not just type, but like I think for the different foods, like you can just have food storage, right? And it'll be able to store all the different types of foods. Or grain, but like you'll need, food storage won't be able to store stone or wood,
Yeah.
right? And there's going to be different types of stones. There's going to be different types of ores. So there'll be one type of storage for each different sort of grouping of resources. But then there's also going to be the ability to repurpose buildings. So you'll be able to take one building and change it into another building, and it'll be, the costs will be based on how similar those buildings are. So if you want to take a stone storage building and change it into an ore storage building, like that's not going to be very difficult. If you want to change a stone storage building and turn it into like a grain mill, like that would be a whole kind of redo. And the reason the reason for that is I want people, like that's part of the game, right? Is sort of this arbitrage thing, like finding opportunities and figuring out like what is the most profitable or efficient thing I can use my land for. So you might be, providing liquidity for a certain thing and building all this storage for it, or producing a certain type of resource, and then maybe you sort of get crowded out. Maybe some whale near you starts doing that, and there's not as much opportunity. So you can look at it and you can say, you know what, it's easy. I can just repurpose a lot of my stuff over to this new thing, and kind of change into this market that has more opportunity right now. So that's part of what the whole land game is like staying on top of the different resources and their values and the markets and what's needed and what's not, and choosing what to build or produce on your land to make the most of it.
Come on, go, Steve. You wanted to ask
there was an interesting question here that somebody threw up, and I didn't think it was accurate that 99% of land is owned by less than 100 people. That seems like it might be wrong, but what are the top 100? What's number 100 at? 200 lands. So
yeah, it's already wrong. I see so many 200s below.
Yeah, there's a bunch more 200s. Okay, that was just wrong. That's why I brought up the rich list really quick.
Well, hold on a sec. Go to the top. Is the last column is the sum. So if you go down, just go back down to number 100. Yeah. You can see there. So the top 100 players own 92,891 out of 150.
Little more than 50%, like 65.
So they don't own 99% of the land. They would have to have.
So they own 62%. The top 100 own 62%.
62%. But to get to 99%, you'd have to go way down this list.
Yes, let's see. Where are we at like 200 or 300?
At 400, we're at 124 plots at 451. 450. Yeah. And so you'd have to get into the 140s to talk about 99% of land.
Yeah, I mean, I think the distribution is pretty decent.
Yeah, and I think the distribution will also change because there's got to be some people who are holding on to land to plots they don't plan to work but don't want to sell before you're done making what you're going to make, right? Because...
Yeah, we have this whole idea of land, I forget what we call it, not squatting, but land surfing, and there's going to be rentals, and there's going to be options for like, even if a lot, some of the whales control a lot of land, that a lot of players can participate. That is something I also really am working on, how we fit it in or when, is I want non-landowners to be able to participate in land. And there's a whole slew of different like cool ideas that people have proposed for how that could work. The part of that could be like with boss fights or the PvE mechanism, right? You are able to earn land resources, but you don't actually have to own land yourself. So yeah, I think the distribution is pretty decent for a project like this. And there'll probably be some some increased distribution over time. But even still, there'll be ways for everybody else to participate eventually.
So
Yeah,
surfing,
land surfing was a really exciting idea to let anybody get into land to make it a more inclusive thing for the entire community. My question about rewards cards, this is more a little bit for players like me who've been playing in Champion for a while. Most of my set is maxed out. I'm getting multiple extra copies of quite a bit of cards, and I'm just wondering when. I don't know, even if they don't plan to be completely unlocked, could there be some way for us to trade them? I'm getting really frustrated that I pulled only one Kulu Heads Hunter and that card keeps kicking my butt. I can't go buy it. But I have, X amount of extras of all the other legendaries. And so we're reaching that point where the top players are probably further along than me because I'm not a top player. And then there's a good amount of people behind me. But if it's not all hands on deck for land anymore, is the unlocking mechanic for land coming? Would you see the unlocking mechanic in general coming?
So first and foremost, we'll have the unlocking mechanic for land. I think that's probably not going to be the initial 1.5 release, but that's going to be afterwards in like 1.6. So like as soon as 1.5 is done, the team's going to roll into just adding in all those other things that are part of the white paper that weren't done yet. So yeah, I see that not being too far out. It's not too difficult of a project there. And then, I don't know. I think when we're a little bit, I think for fully unlocking the cards, so they'll be tradable. I see that being like once we're a decent ways into the Rebellion set, 3 to 6 months, then we'll start, thinking about new Rebellion reward cards. And at that point, we open up the Chaos Legion reward cards, the soulbound ones, to be able to be unlocked and be tradable, which should hopefully take care of people like you in the situation where you have extras. You'll be able to utilize those.
Yeah, it's more like I just wanted the ability to buy the few I haven't pulled because I lose to a lot of those cards, and it's just like I can't use that card. I only have it at level 1. It's not it's not playable in Champion. So it's a one. It feels like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's becoming more of a frustration because I can't gear myself towards getting that card, and I'll just have to live with it if that's the way it is. But I had you here, so I thought I'd push you on it a little bit.
Well, I also don't think I said like wait until it's time to release new Rebellion reward cards, but I don't think we need to wait for that until we make the old ones tradable. That you can still be getting the old ones while they're also tradable, and as long as you need to spend the DEC to make that happen, it won't affect the market in the same way that the old Chaos Legion reward cards did. So, maybe that's something, now that I think about it, that's like once Rebellion's out and land is out, that could be sooner, like potentially an early next year thing. Because I'm in the same boat as you in that's why I, like I said earlier, have someone who also helps play my account because I want to get those cards ASAP.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I had originally thought you could do some limitations on who could unlock if you were worried about them flooding the market. But I think you're right, with the DEC burn, they probably wouldn't, because people would only...
just puts a floor on the price.
Yeah.
So like they can, like, it wouldn't make sense to flood, like if they were flooded on the market, why would people, like if there was a bunch on the market that weren't selling, why would people pay DEC to unlock theirs? You know what I mean? So just like it naturally works out, I think, which is why overall this is a much better system for reward cards.
There was a discussion, like we had a stream like a few days ago. Virus was asking something, and I see that he asked the question again. Is like, do you have any concern that rewards not being unlocked at the time of the new set release will stop some whales from re-entering the game that had previously quit, in a way that they won't have the ability to acquire them, and they will be feeling like they're behind?
I guess I hadn't really thought too much about it. I guess it would have been good generally to allow those to be unlocked and tradable around the time of the Rebellion release, and hopefully it'll be done not too long after it. But I don't know. I mean, if old whales are going to look at it that way. Again, it's sort of that's a short-term mindset. If they decide, hey, I don't want to buy Rebellion because I'm annoyed that I chose not to play over the last year and not get those cards, then hopefully it'll be a situation where they kick themselves later and it's like, crap, I should have bought Rebellion, when I could have.
Yeah,
So
I do think there's also another point to think about, though, that maybe unlocking them not too long into Rebellion is good, because you could have new players that come for Rebellion. And while Chaos Legion is cheap, they're going to be like, whoa, what is this card I'm losing to? I can't find it on the market anywhere. Whoa, I have to start earning them. And if, it might maybe prevent them from going up. I could see almost a soulbound card level being a reason why I wouldn't go from silver to gold. Be like, I got to wait until I get more of these cards before I'm going to invest more into the game. So
yeah, I agree, and that's why, like, literally as I was talking about it, I was like, wait a minute, we don't need to wait until it's time to release new reward cards for Rebellion in order to make Chaos Legion cards unlockable. So I agree with you, and I think that should be a project soon after the Rebellion General release. And I don't think also it's like too big of a lift for us. So I could see that, us working on that in like the December timeframe potentially, and having that released like early next year. So like a month or two at most into the Rebellion release. I don't want to commit to that. But I do generally agree.
It's already been clipped. It's already been
nothing. No, we heard nothing, man. It's okay.
But no, I'm glad you see that, because as a player who wants to be competitive, every time you lose to a card you can't even buy, it's a little bit like, it feels weird. So I think it's good to hear that that's on your mind now, at least.
Yeah, it feels weird, but hopefully it encourages people to play more, right, and to get the other cards to play more and win more.
I play a lot. No, I'm typically spending like 40,000 DEC a season at least buying energy. So
well, right. I mean, maybe this is potentially if you were able to just buy the cards off the market, because that's the problem that I saw with myself. I was like, I don't give a crap about playing. I mean, I like the game and everything, and I enjoy it, but like, I was busy and I was like, why am I playing? I'm just going to buy all the cards off the market. Like, let other people play, and, I have more money than I have time. So I'll just do that. And that's really why I was very excited for the Soulbound reward cards, because it like kicked me into gear. I was like, now I really feel incentivized to play the game, and I don't want to lose that.
And I want to rewind just a little bit back, because you touched upon it, but we haven't really heard much about it lately. Is land surfing still a thing? Like, is it something that is planned to be released at some point, like before 2.0? Like, is it still in the books?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's one of those after 1.5 but before 2.0 features. So it's like things like the grain market, unlocking soulbound cards at least to be able to be used on land surfing. I mean, I feel like those are the three like main things I can think of off the top of my head. And I think land surfing is going to be real important. I mean, for one thing, I highly doubt I'm going to be able to have the time to make use of all my land. I'd much rather like be able to put it out for other people to jump on, and I get a portion of the rewards for that. Exactly. And then I think also just like, there's people have mentioned about how there's like a whole bunch of regions that haven't been claimed yet. I think once land is actually released, hopefully those will start to go, and people will start redeeming their claims. But also it's just like, there's a bunch of people I think like me that either have too much land or just even a little bit of land and just don't feel like putting up the DEC or cards to deal with it. So I think land surfing is really important for just the utilization of land in general.
I agree 100%. I'm going to probably, now, especially now that we had to, I had to settle my DEC that was supposedly for land for the pre-sale. Then I cannot start my land until surfing. So I'm looking forward to that. So at least I can get something out of my land.
Yeah, so it won't be on the initial release, definitely, but that's one of the main things that we'll work on shortly afterwards.
Yeah, I just haven't heard a lot talked about it lately. So I was like, we heard about it from Hardpoint in People's Guild podcast. Like, shout out to the People's Guild also, by the way. and it was like a big alpha for everybody, and everybody was so excited. And since then, it wasn't mentioned that often when talking about land, so I was like not sure. There was some stuff like when Agi was still leading the town squares, and there were questions about that. He was mentioning something that you're not quite sure how it was going to work. So it felt like it might happen, it may not, but I guess now we have confirmation that it is coming for sure.
Yeah, I would say I mean, we definitely don't have all the details ironed out yet, so I don't know exactly, the exact mechanics of how everything will work. And the reason, we kind of stopped focusing on that was because I kind of talked about earlier how like the
All
whole
hands in deck.
release of 1.5 was a bit of a mess, and we had to like focus on that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, once in the near future, we're gonna get back to figuring out all those details, letting the community know, and then getting it built. Yeah,
By the way, we are
I got
almost
another
speaking.
like 5 or so more minutes before I
Yeah.
gotta head out. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case there was anything specific we didn't get to you wanted to talk about.
I was
I don't
just
know. We
about
can
to
go.
say,
We can go to the chat maybe for a second. The only other thing I was going to mention, but again, it's a little bit more me, is the the modern league elo system. I would like to have that maybe evaluated by somebody because there's far too many matches. I feel like where you play for either getting 10 points or losing 35 points with the new player base. And I don't know how to fix it is the problem. But if there's somebody out there smart enough, I would appreciate them letting us know because it feels a little bit harder than it should be to advance through the leagues when you get up near the top.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but I have done a lot of brainstorming in the past on different ways we can do ranked and the ratings. The one thing though, yeah, and I don't know for sure that the current system is necessarily bad, as far as that. I mean, that it is supposed to be hard to get up through the ratings. So I'm keeping that in mind that like things being hard doesn't necessarily mean bad. And a lot of times the player base is generally saying, "Oh, things are too hard," and they want more stuff, and they want it to be easier to get. And I want to be a little careful about just saying, "Oh yeah, it's hard. Okay, we need to change that." So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying like that's part of my mindset is don't just assume because players are saying it's hard that's a bad thing. But I have thought about different, like maybe it makes sense. Like Hearthstone, for example, doesn't have an ELO system. It just has like every win you get a star, every loss you lose a star. So it's and I was thinking like maybe it'd be better for us to have a system like that where we stick with our rating, but maybe you get 20 points for a win, you lose 20 points for a loss, and that's that. Um, that would also have to change. The problem is those changes like they trickle down into all sorts of things. You can't just make that change because then our whole leaderboards get way out of whack because then the ELO system where the top leaderboard players only gain 3 rating points from a win and lose 30 from a loss keeps them from like running away if they bots just play like crazy. So we need to adjust our leaderboard system. To make sure we can't have runaways if we were going to change it from an elo system. And there were like a bunch of other considerations. So once I started working on it, I came up with a whole actually redesign, but it was like a complete redesign of like everything. It was like throw out ranked and do it a whole different way. And just at the time we were busy with other things, so I never got to thinking about it. But and maybe that's what we need to do. I don't know. But it's never just as simple as just make a tweak to elo and everything's fixed. We may need to rethink the whole system. I was even thinking with that of getting rid of the individual leaderboards at each league and just having it just having the leagues be more of a cosmetic thing. And obviously they go to the rewards that you earn in the chest level. But so once as soon as you get to above whatever it is 1800 or 1900, you just go from silver right into gold, and there's not this like option of staying and playing for the leaderboard. And so if you're at the top of silver, you could also be matched against low gold players. or or anything. So it would be a much more fluid system throughout the whole thing. And it would be this like set, like fixed amount of rating point gain or loss. So the point is I did a lot of thinking about this. I had a whole brainstorm design, but it's like kind of a major change to the whole system that we didn't have time yet to really go through. But at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, we can really start looking at these things and talking to the community and see if it makes sense to really change up how ranked works to make it a more fun experience.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like it does, because I feel like the current system today, sometimes when you're playing for the top, it incentivizes people to not play that much. And some examples can be your 2nd, 4th, and 5th player last season only playing 130, 150, and 159 games. That's like 10 games per day. That's not even coming close to using the amount of energy they should. And
right, once they get to that level, they want to stop because they don't want to lose.
they just stop, and then that makes it harder for a player like me, because I can't play people above me because they all just stop playing at the end of the season. So you're only playing people below you. So you never have that chance for 30 points. You only have a chance for 10, 10, 20, and then minus 30, minus 30. And so you went 3 and 2 in 5 matches and lost 10 rating points. That's my consistent end of the season play. And it's the same thing when I've talked to some other players. The grind at the end of the season becomes crazy because the top players just don't play anymore. So you're only playing against people lower than you. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a guy who's lower than, close enough to you that it's okay. And so it does feel like, should you be able to get second place only playing 133 games? Because that feels a little weird.
Yeah, so I agree, and I generally like the idea that I said of going to like fixed rating increases and decreases rather than the ELO system. And it's also different between like the champion leaderboard and the other leaderboards. So like in champ leaderboard, I don't think that's a problem. Like if you can consistently have a higher than 50% win rate against the top players in the game, then yeah, you should, deserve to keep moving up. The lower leaderboards, we have more issues with bots and things like that. So I'm generally in agreement that it should be changed. It's just a matter of the time to really design out that change and find all the consequences of that change to other areas.
Yeah, like I said, I can't even say that I have an idea of how to fix it, because I understand how integral this is to rewards being given out and all of those things. So it's not an easy thing to fix. It was just something that, like, and you're right, maybe it needs to be this hard, but it's gotten pretty hard, and it's
hard is good
out.
Though. Like, I like that the game is hard, right? It's a challenge, so that it's good in a way. But yeah, I agree. There's a balance there.
And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I believe Stevie as well, for coming to our stream and talking about your vision and making it a good 2 hours of our lives, I believe. So I really appreciate you, and I'm thinking that I can speak from everybody that is here on this stream today.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, I'm super excited about all this stuff. I get more excited when I get to talk to you guys about it and share more details about it. So yeah, now we got to just make it happen.
I mean, I have thousands more questions, but we don't have the time. So maybe
we'll do this again.
We're here every Monday night. We're also, since we met through Splinterlands TV, that came to an end, but it did lead to this show. And with that show going off, we're going to try to expand this to maybe a twice a week show. It was great to have you. Thank you so much for listening to my personal complaints at the end there, and just in general sharing all the things you did with the crowd tonight. And thank you to everybody that came in.
All right, thanks guys. I am going to head to bed. It is late for me here. Thank you again for making it earlier, just to accommodate me.
Oh, of course.
Do you want to stay for a moment, baby, or should we just wrap?
Sure. Yeah, dude, I'm not in a hurry, man.
Okay. We'll let you get out of here, Matt. Thank you so much, and we'll stay with the crowd for just another about 10, 15 minutes, maybe. See you.
All right. See you guys.
For us.
Thanks. Bye. Well, that was exciting.
Yeah. Okay, guys, how'd we do? And thank you, Gathering the Magic. Hitting the like button would be pretty exciting. It is always great to talk to Matt, and when he started going off about land, I just wanted to listen. That was pretty amazing. He dropped some serious alpha into the whole 2.0 series.
Keep on asking questions about land, but I mean...
I know. There was just certain things that I wanted to bring up, and I admit maybe I was a little too focused on the now, and you were trying to drive things for where are we going to go in the future, which is a good thing. But I know a lot of us also are just making sure we're going to get to that future is a worry some people have. So, well, where's the champagne? Says Bots. And sorry guys, we didn't get you. We didn't get to every single question you guys were throwing out there. I was gonna try to work some of them in. I mean, Alex, we didn't specifically ask him whether or not it was a summoner focused set, but I did ask him if the summoners would be tattoo inspiring, and he said, well, maybe. So I think that kind of covered that a little bit. It obviously means the one thing I did get out of him, the airdrop summoners for the new set aren't going to be weaklings. They might overshadow the stuff we already have in the game. So I thought that was some pretty interesting information, at least from his point of view.
Yeah, we'll be getting something between Jacek and Yodin.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what they mean by summoner focus set stuff. You know, I wonder, is that the part that got missed out on YouTube? Because I didn't even know how to approach that.
I saw and I couldn't understand the question neither, but now that you're talking about it, maybe they mean that it will be like if you don't have the summoners, most of the cards won't make any sense. Like that the summoners will be like must-have summoners. That's how I'm understanding it. I know Jangos asked it first. I didn't ignore it. I just couldn't understand it, and then I couldn't said Matt, can you stop for a while? I need to figure out with Jangos what exactly he means. So yeah, sorry Jangos, it's not like I didn't want to say to ask the question or I didn't see it. It's just like the conversation was in a way that I couldn't ask you for what exactly you need.
So you're saying that Matt said that they might have common summoners, rare summoners, and legendary summoners. Well, we know that the airdropped ones will be the legendaries. I had thought the dual cost, the multi-mana summoners were going to be epic for some reason from the past.
Well, yeah,
but maybe those got changed into being rares, and then there would be some kind of common. I mean, it does make sense for there to be multiple summoners because you get to replace all the summoners that are disappearing in Untamed, right? Oh, there's my silly chain golem. I was looking at him earlier. I was thinking about selling him.
Show off.
Oh gosh, 1 gold legendary from the old set. That's all I have left. I'm showing off so much.
Not one. It's a chain golem. That's different.
Yeah. So I'm trying just to get to summoners and get rid of the gladiators, and then I'm going to shrink us a little bit. I mean, but all of these guys, and there's actually, let me go to all cards because there's a couple I don't own.
I don't
because they were not that meta. But I mean, you've got 3 from each set going away, right? 4, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dragons going away. So yeah, I definitely could see there'll be at least 3, but I don't think it's that uncommon. I mean, the normal sets, well, these are including the mini sets, I guess. So to get 3 from one set, maybe a little bit extra. So, but yeah, hopefully somebody can get some more information on that for you guys. Sorry, for some reason I missed that. My guess is you're going to get something in the 3 cost range because the 3 cost range ones are going away, right? Both of them for like all the 3 cost summoners are gone. So that'll probably be a rare. Your legendary will be airdrops. They're going to be something along the line of 7, 8, 9 mana would be my guess because he said he wants them to be big and impactful and strong. So I'm not thinking they'll be lower than the current 6 legendaries. Since we have 4 epics in Modern from Rift Watchers, what do you think? I mean, the only other common summoner ever in the game was Dahlin at 5. Do you think there'd be some 5 cost commons maybe?
Could be, but actually, what I don't think they'll be equal in a way that what he said is some of them will have dual, some will have the tactics. This is from the not airdrop ones, so it won't be like a mainstream like this series. Like you have one of each element, and they're exactly the same mana cost, and they're exactly the same rarity, and they have just exactly two stats each. From what
So
he was
that's
saying,
what's
from what I understood, at least there in the town square, he was explaining that there'll be different, like some will have the dual elements, some will have the tactics, some will have both. He said probably the legendaries. It's not confirmed yet, so he couldn't probably even answer to everybody because he said a lot of details are not confirmed yet. But he was making sure to understand that it will be a mixture of everything. It won't be as streamlined as it was before. Maybe the legendaries will be, but the rest will be a drop here, a drop there, from what I understood.
yeah. I mean, I think you definitely get a 3-cost summoner because look, this is what's left. And I have a gold Lux, that's why this is grayed out. But we don't have any threes, right?
I mean,
We don't
so,
have
so
fives.
what? So what if we don't? I mean, even if we don't,
But
what's
it's
the
been
big
a
deal?
staple of the game since the very
We don't
beginning.
have
There's always been 3-cost summoners that are
we don't
rare
have
with one
two
ability.
we don't have two mana cost without abilities neither. But, I mean, so what?
Well, but they're not a staple of the game. I mean, Alpha and Beta both had threes. Untamed had threes. Dice had threes. Chaos Legion was the first one with rare fours. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of summoners. My guess is you're going to get a three. I think you're going to see 3, 5, 8, personally, and maybe 6 as well. But the sixes won't be legendaries. They'll be something else.
I think the only fixed mana summoners will be the legendary ones.
Yeah, and you guys are right. The fact that tactics are coming into the game, it does mean Rebellion will have some power creep. But also, I do think we don't really understand the full power of these summoners on the board because they've had to fight untamed summoners. And once they don't have to fight untamed summoners anymore, it's going to be interesting to see like how good is Astral Entity when Kitty's not here to counter it. How good is Yasik when he's the only +2 speed card in the game? You know, how good is Possibilist the Wise going into the future when you don't have, you know, some of the current cards that might deter you from using it. Same thing with all of these cards, you know?
How powerful is Immortalis against the Armor Strike?
Yeah, Immortality versus the new Armor Strike because it's just going to shatter all of the armor. I mean, and you have to remember too, there'll be at least a time, depending on how quick we get into the airdrops, where these 6 drops are going to be the strongest summoners in the game. Because there won't be, I don't think, 2 legendary summoners from the set. Do you think there would possibly be?
No, but also we don't know what combinations of dual elements, because what he said was probably all legendaries will be both having the tactics and being dual summoners.
True,
So
true. The legendary summoners are going to be very interesting, but I imagine there'll only be 6 of them outside of something like a Waka, like a special promo. But we didn't get one for the pre-sale, so now I'm not even thinking there'll be one. So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I didn't really want to stay on for too much longer, guys, but I figured, you know, we just, since we had ignored you a little bit and just let Matt talk and had a discussion with him, we would talk to you guys for a little bit. Let's see, is there any other things you want to touch on?
me, no. I mean, I have uh, the need to rewatch the stream, so we could end it anytime. I just need to watch it one more time because I was thinking, I was focused and like I was busy thinking about what next can we get from the conversation rather than
But
diving.
rather than always listening to it, I think some of the times when I got kind of quiet, it's because I was just listening to what Matt was saying and trying to process it in my head.
Yeah, so I definitely need to watch it once again, but it was a lot of fun, man. I think we got a lot of alpha drop here.
Yeah, we got some serious land alpha dropped with the confirmation that there's going to be special food, the confirmation that there's going to be special storage units for all the food. I think, guys, as much as Matt, said, hey, you have a lot of land at 200, he's designing this to where even a guy like me is not going to be able to do everything, at least not all at once. You're right. I might be able to specialize enough in one thing to trade my way into doing everything.
But that's the whole point.
That's the whole point, guys, is because I'm going to have to trade my way into doing everything. I'm not going to just be able to do it. So I'll be able to make a whole bunch of some items within my 200 lands. But then if I want to craft spells, I'm going to have to go out there and trade. And the more I have to trade means the more rewarding all of those liquidity pools are to be a part of.
Yes, but with 200 plots, you have to trade your way to items and spells instead of buying your way to items and spells. That's the whole difference.
that might be true.
That's what I was meaning by sustainable, that you wouldn't need to spend extra money or extra DLC from the ones that you have already, like outside of the land, but you'll be able to use whatever you produce to get everything that you need. And that's what sustainable means. It doesn't mean that you have to produce every single thing that you need. It just means you need to produce enough to get everything that you need.
Hey, and I'm glad that I got a little shout out for the fans of the death card, that Matt admitted that he didn't know why, but these guys suck.
Yeah.
Given Astral Entity, I think will become much more meta in the beginning of the new Modern, because Kitty won't be there to give True Strike and make this dodge ability not work. Because when you play him at the right time, he can do some ridiculous things, but there's just too many counters. There's a summoner that just erases his abilities. So,
well, at least I have the feeling that we made the case that we need something exciting in that team.
Yeah, maybe if we get an awesome death summoner, guys, I want at least a couple thank yous for that. A couple. All right, guys, I think we're going to sign off. And yes, crafting death bread or mushroom bread or spark bread or lunastone bread. It's so exciting to see Matt talk about all of that. It's going to be quite an ecosystem land is going to end up being. So thanks, everybody. And I hope you have a good one.
You got me on mushroom bread. Bye, guys. Thanks for being around, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
All right. I ended the stream on YouTube.